of the UD. All please stand and join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks everyone for coming. At this time, do we have any comments from the audience on non-agenda items? I don't see a big rush to the podium, so we'll move on to, are there any corrections to the agenda or consent calendar? Once again, I'm not seeing a big rush for that one. Let's get a motion in.
I move adoption of the consent calendar.
I'll second that. Yeah, I guess it's 4-0, thanks. Okay, let's move on to item 6A.
Hello, good afternoon. I've got a couple items for you today. Item 6A is the let me start over. The David Lane Booster Station improvement. We have a proposal from Corolla Engineers. Staff requested that on the heels of our water station efficiency project that we've been doing for the last year. David Lane is one of 7 stations that are our highest energy consuming water stations in our system. The other 6 are wells. David Lane Booster is the booster station that serves the Heavenly Valley Resort and much of the Heavenly Keller area. This station has a really challenging energy profile in that the consumption in the area is very low in the summertime and very high in the winter, which is pretty opposite of most of the rest of our system. And it's primarily high in the winter because of the number of people at Heavenly Valley Resort and their snowmaking. And so through this project over the last year, where we were working on identifying improvements we could make to the station to help make it more efficient, some other things came to light, and primarily that the aging switch here was really in need of a replacement. The station has been on the capital improvement program list for some time and has continued to be pushed out. It was on the list to improve the emergency power the emergency power facilities at the station. There had been discussion of putting a permanent generator there. Right now it just has a single plug-in, but we have talked through and are going to make, we're planning on making some other changes. We're going to add a second plug-in so that we could bring up 2 temporary generators if that station is out of power for a long duration, especially during the winter or during a fire scenario. So there's a number of needs at the station, not just the energy improvements. The station also needs a new roof, and we've been talking to CTC about the alignment of their proposed bike trail through the area, and they would like to do a lot line adjustment with us so that we would gain more frontage on the road, and they would take over part of the parcel back. So we're going to accomplish a number of things through this project. The proposal before you from Corolla focuses solely on the mechanical and electrical upgrades, and one of the key efficiency components of the project will focus on pump replacement and proper pump sizing for the station to meet those height differences between the summer and the winter. So the civil portions of the project set, we will accomplish those in-house with staff, since civil improvements is what we're best at. And they'll focus on the mechanical and electrical, and their proposal is in the amount of $215,300. So if you have any questions.
It looks like we're getting El Dorado Water agency money on this also.
Yeah, so this is one of the projects that is on the list for El Dorado County's consideration, and
Not a lot yet.
Right, so if you approve the task order, we'll go ahead and process it, but I won't give them authorization to start work on it until we have the agreement with El Dorado County Water Agency confirmed.
Does anybody have any questions, comments? Sounds like a good project. Anyone excited to make a motion?
I move that we approve the proposal from Corolla Engineers for engineering services in an amount not to exceed $215,300 to design mechanical and electrical improvements for the David Lane booster station.
I'll second that. Okay, it's 4-0, and you're on a roll, Julie. Keep going.
All right, the next item, 6B, is another proposal from Corolla Engineers. This one is to help us with main zone district metered areas. It's one of the projects that I talked about last week in our sort of overall asset management plan for the water distribution system. And Corolla was requested to put together this proposal for us primarily because of their role as our consultant for running the hydraulic model. And what they'll be doing is taking a look at our main zone, which contains 17,000 of our 14,000 odd customers, and breaking it into pieces, identifying locations where we would be able to put in distribution system flow meters to track the amount of water that's going into and out of certain areas of the main zone. In combination with the advanced metering infrastructure that we recently installed, that'll allow us to be able to track how much water is being lost from our system, our non-revenue water. So part of the scope of work beyond just breaking the system into small pieces with the hydraulic model will also be to develop a prototype station for distribution system flow monitoring. This is kind of a new arena for us. We don't have any flow meters currently in our distribution system in any sort of vault out in the street is sort of what we're picturing. So we're kind of on the front edge of the technology there. But we'll work with Corolla and some of our relationships with other agencies and see what they're doing and hopefully come up with a good design that can be deployed across the system.
So this design will separate it into areas, and then once those are identified, as we see needed, we could add meters at each of those areas.
Exactly. And this is another one of those projects that is being funded in part by El Dorado County Water Agency. So again, with your approval, we'll go ahead and process the task order for Corolla, and then we'll tell them not to proceed until we get confirmation from El Dorado County Water Agency on the funding.
I think it's a good idea. I was just driving down my road the other day and I saw spring coming up out of the asphalt, so it's good that we can identify these things before we see it.
And you called us?
I did call and it came out.
We've discussed this in the operations committee several times. It's good. Well, it's the only good reason I can see for having water meters now. All the expensive we have to go through.
Well, now you got me by the way, right?
Yeah, but we're going to be able to identify areas where we're losing water and follow much better control over the whole system, the water system. We'll save some money that way on using water.
I agree. Now that they made us have meters, we might as well make use of them, right?
Yeah. So maybe it's just in case that
Is that a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve the proposal from Corolla Engineers for engineering services in the amount not to exceed $82,600 to design district metering areas within the main zone of the water distribution system.
I'll second that. And I agree with what you said. thought Marla was trying to speed me up there.
Okay.
Tell me to move on. Okay. She's a little jumpy. Okay, 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dwight, I want to have you introduce this one. This is kind of your favorite subject.
Yeah. This item has been on our budget list probably for 20 years, maybe longer. Seems like it's missing some words though. It's like, and that's a different couple. What are the other?
That's a different one. That's the inductive coupled plasma photospectrometer. Spectrophotometer.
Why don't we get Daniel up here? I want to hear
Inductively coupled ion, reverse ion spectrometer. And it was so nice that they needed it and they put it off as good budget people for years and years. I was so impressed with that. They thought they would actually go through with it when I can pronounce it, and I don't think it's ever going to happen.
Well, we'll try today, and I'm sorry to say that it was probably put off for one more year and would have been prudent, but here we are. And it's my pleasure to address you again. This is only my second time, but I am now addressing you as the lab director at SDPUD, so I'm happy about that.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm here to request that the board find that the HPIC, high pressure ion chromatograph, perhaps that's the one you're thinking of.
That's not, but it's pretty good.
Okay. From Thermo Fisher, which from now on I'll simply refer to as the IC, to make it simple. I'd like the board to find that the IC from Thermo Fisher is the sole brand instrument for use at the lab at SDPUD. I would also like to ask the board to authorize the purchase of said IC from the sole provider, Thermo Fisher. The cost is $61,811 plus sales tax. If I may give you a little bit of background on this instrument, the current instrument, our current IC, was purchased in 2007, which seems like a lot longer than 10 years now. This is the primary instrument that our lab uses in order to measure what we call nutrients, mostly phosphates, nitrates, and nitrites. We need these numbers for many reasons. One of the main ones is process control for our wastewater treatment plant. The operators need these numbers weekly in order to track whether the plant is nitrifying, how well the process is going. We also need these numbers to measure our impact in Alpine County. Just today we sampled Alpine County. We had to turn around because apparently there's a fire and Diamond Valley Road was closed. But we brought back a few samples, and yes, we're running them on this old IC today, again, mostly for phosphates and nitrates. Also, Indian Creek Reservoir has very strict TMDL rules on phosphate, and we need to measure phosphate at very low levels in order to satisfy those rules. On the drinking water side, we need to measure all of these ions, but in particular things like fluoride and bromide on all our drinking water wells every year. We're in the process of doing that. This instrument is the one we use. The company we bought the 2007 instrument from, Dionix, which then blended into Thermo Fisher, told us just this year that they will no longer support our instrument. We had a service contract agreement with them that provided phone support, which we used all the time. They would also do preventive maintenance visits and send us parts as we needed them. They told us they will no longer support it. This isn't, I think, just a ploy to get us to buy the new instrument. It's clear that this instrument is deteriorating quickly. I brought this thing as a visual aid. This is a column. We usually had to replace one of these. They come in as a pair like this every year at the level of use of the instrument. These cost $1,000 a piece, just this thing. Really, the instrument is just a bunch of computer equipment built around this thing. Now we're replacing one of these every 4 months, and it's very clear when these just get spent completely. The cost has gone up with just being able to use it. Our staff recommends that we buy the upgraded model from the same source. It will allow us to use some of the same parts. It will have the same software. It's software we're quite familiar with. And really, there aren't too many choices. There are only 2 choices as far as these instruments are concerned. These are at the low end of sophistication. You know, if we were buying a mass spec or one of those instruments that may cost 10 times as much, well, I'm sure there'll be a lot more manufacturers, but not too many places sell these. So there were only 2 choices. So the staff would like to get the same instrument from the same source. So I would like to ask the board to approve the purchase of this instrument from the sole provider, which is Thermo Fisher, in the amount of $61,800.
I'll make a motion. I did have a question for you.
Please, yes.
It's unrelated. I want to congratulate you on being selected, but also on the ability to snow us with words and numbers.
I believe the only one I did was iron chromatograph just once, or is there more?
I don't think disagree a little bit. I thought that was a very succinct, to the point presentation that covered all the needed points.
But I wanted to-
And as the president of the board, I really appreciate that kind of presentation.
I appreciate it. It took a little bit of revision. You should have seen version 1.0. I still snowing it.
But to Doreen's point, this is a secret that he's not supposed to give out. When it comes to stuff like this and IT, we don't know a thing, so you can probably get your way. Well, we're supposed to know that.
The truth is, you could do our job, but we couldn't do yours.
I don't know about that, but please do ask me questions, you know.
So let me make the motion, we'll do it, and then I have a question that the public has.
I have one question real quick. Do we need to make 2 motions since it's fighting for sole brand?
No, you do it all.
Okay, thanks.
We do too, by the way.
All right, I move that we find the high-pressure ion chromatograph from Thermo Scientific to be the sole brand instrument for use in the district laboratory, and 2, authorize purchase of the high-pressure ion chromatograph instrument from the sole provider, Thermo Fisher Corporation, at the estimated amount of $61,811 plus sales tax.
I'll second that.
I just had one question. What happens to the old one? Is it doesn't sound like it's worth much, but is it have a value, or would you keep it as a backup?
Well, I appreciate you asking, because it is a part of my presentation I left out, and not on purpose. We intend to keep that instrument because we would like to still use it to measure high-level, if you will, dirty water, such as soil extracts or even our wastewater treatment plant. It still works quite well if the results we're looking for are hot. So we will still use it for that, and we'll keep the newer instrument mostly for drinking water or for any agreed reservoir. It still works. We're just gonna now use it for dirtier chemistries in the hope of making these things last a little longer.
Even at $1,000 a column?
Even at $1,000, yeah, even at the bargain price of $1,000 a column, yes. So yes, we'll keep them both running, and hopefully we'll be able to integrate them. We'll see how the new software looks so that we can use them both from one screen and all that.
I'll wait for the vote.
Jim?
To be able to do it.
I'm waiting on Jim.
Okay, that passes for nothing, but I don't think you're off the hook yet.
Well, it's just I had a couple the other day. It's actually happened to me twice in the last year, but this one couple had some water. I believe that they may have brought in from another country or something, and they asked where they could get that tested, because they go there on vacation and they didn't know if the water was safe. And I told them I didn't know if we would test water for somebody under those conditions or not, but that they could give a call and see.
We can test water. There is no such thing as calling water safe. We don't have a portability test. We can test for specific things. If their concern were to be arsenic or nitrates, we could test for that and tell them a number. But, there's 1,000 different ways in which water can be unsafe, especially in foreign countries. And if bacteria or viruses or even protozoans were concerned, we could do very little. Those have to be tested right away. So yes, we charge very little, but it won't be very helpful, to be told a number.
Maybe the health department, or I don't know.
Well, we would be the lab the health department would call. So, we could measure metals, we could measure nitrates, but that won't tell them it's safe.
I imagine they were thinking of bacteria.
Yeah, if that's the case, then no, we couldn't do it. It has to be done within 24 hours. 18 is actually our limit here at the lab. We turn it back if it's more hours than that, unless they have a good reason.
Okay, thank you.
Do I just remark, I don't believe the testing of private parties' water that's not part of the district system would be permissible by the district. It's not within the scope.
We have a fee lab. We test water from outside agencies.
Do you?
Yeah, we do.
But if you
From non-district water.
Okay. If you do, then you need to open up, your lab gets opened up to whoever wants to come in and test.
Yeah, we have a fee lab. I mean, we charge for it. We've got set rates for
Okay.
specific tests that we do. And I'm speaking for you, but
No, that is true, and our lab is open to any customer can come and ask to see how we do it or look at our records.
honestly, in the past, this is a conversation I've had with Carrie. You and I have not spoken about it, but one of the things that we do, we set the cost for our tests that we do a little bit higher than the commercial labs because we don't want to be putting anybody else out of business. We want those private labs, honestly, to get that work. But we've set our rates so that we're not, we're a little bit higher than what's happening on the outside.
Okay. Well, I told her I didn't think we could, but it's going to hurt.
Yes. Okay. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Everybody?
I move approval of payment of claims in the amount of $3,543,596.96.
And it has to go to zero. Next on the list is the standing and ad hoc committee reports. I guess I might as well go first. Richard and Dwayne and I met with Wendy, David, and Dirk from the city on Friday. We do that about once a month. It's a formal meeting. We just kind of discuss issues that are going on between the two government agencies. Topics included the drainage at the, was that the Pioneer Trailer Park? Pioneer Trailer Park, working with the city and the Forest Service to get that going. We also talked about, one of my favorite topics is how to get rid of the city light metering bills. This is the first they heard about it. They thought it was quite humorous. I said told them I thought it would be humorous if they were having a problem. Get that from our side. Got anything else, Dwayne, you want to add in there?
Let's see, we discussed affordable housing language that they might want to enact, and that kind of the general conclusion was that we would go ahead and perhaps put something together and just say subject to city or county's
Yeah, that's a good point. It was my point of view. I said, well, why don't we wait till we get closer to when you need this, so we don't have to change the language just in case, the project changes. But they claim they've got something ready to roll right now, so they'd like us to move forward on this.
We are working on something right now. We've just discussed it this afternoon, and hopefully we'll have a draft ordinance for the committee to review shortly, which is Dwayne and Chris Wallace. And stuff along. More stuff than you
Anything to add to that, Richard?
No, just that the next meeting is August 10th. This not only laid out the meetings into the future, and this one was sort of late in the month, so it's just actually
Another couple of weeks.
Well, we did discuss the PCE issue too.
And we discussed the DC issue in the meeting that's to be held at their council chambers at the airport on the 8th in the evening.
And I want to thank whoever on staff got that information out to Paul Peterson. I saw that showed up on the web today. I'm sure that was somebody that sent that out.
I have a site inspection So I'm happy it's up.
It is,
Thanks, Randy.
Yeah, and talk about, Mohammed and what they were up to, and that they were, the fact that they would be at the meeting, giving a presentation, and so, that was good to hear their continued support, because the city is providing their IT staff in order to stream that meeting live. The last meeting was attended to by at least 30 people from home, along with 50 people at the meeting itself, so. Hopefully we'll get a good turnout. We'll be talking about some of the results of the field testing that's been ongoing, at the site, kind of in the center of the plume area.
Okay, very good. Any other standing committee reports? No? How about board member reports? Okay, we got some.
Just one quick one. I'll be attending the CASA meeting. Unfortunately, I'll miss the PCE meeting and the water agency meeting, but I'll have to leave early that day in order to get down there. The CASA meeting starting early the next one.
That's the one in Monterey.
Yeah. And
So how to shoot up for us.
I saw Ken the other day and told that when he's going to miss the meeting, I'm sorry, but naming it, referring on him or his staff, and wasn't going to show up.
Okay, Dwayne, you got any?
Well, what Shannon wrote here about our trip to Washington was pretty well clear. Our flight got messed up, and so we ended up staying up for many hours. We were supposed to fly out of LA at 11 in the morning, roughly. We go out about 11 at night, and got into town just in time to shower. And under normal circumstances, we would have put off returning for another day, but it was important that we met with Congressman Amade's people because he was going to be directly meeting with the Forest Service that afternoon. So we soldiered through. He helped drag me around from office to office, and we met, I think, with 8 different offices. And our theory on the fire partnership and the PCE, but mostly the fire partnership, was to get kind of rein congressmen and senators down on the Forest Service in advance of what we think is coming, which is a reduction once again in the funding for the partnership through the Restoration Act. And so we think that even if half of them and 4 of them show interest, the Forest Service will wake up. And because the Forest Service claims they don't have money, yet according to our people, the things we've seen, they got an extra $5 million. So they haven't been, there hasn't been veracity on their part, and it's just a rumor that they're going to try to do it again, which is taking our money. Once they've done that a couple of years in a row, they're going to say, well, you've never gotten it in the past. And then our partnership, which is a strong thing and an important thing, it is to me completely as a board member. And those fires down there in Reading just sent chills down my spine, thinking of the way our traffic would back up at the instance of the fire, and how anybody would even get out of here without riding a bicycle, I guess. So we have to do what we're doing, and we have to keep our partnership going. And I thought Shannon did a good job of working with our people back there, and they set up the meetings very well. So we were able to go everywhere we needed to go in a timely way. And we were helped by Olivia. I'm sorry, I don't know her last name.
I'm not sure either.
Anyway, she works with IVKID, and she's their representative back there, just like Inez is for us. And so she helped us on a meeting too with people that she knew. So it went pretty well. McClintock's guy, Chris, said that he would get the congressman there. Congressman just poked his head in for a second and had to run for a vote. But Chris Tudor said that he would fill him in for sure, and that they would start taking action. Because that's a big issue with the congressman is fire suppression. And that's what I think.
Just a little bit of additional information and to talk a little bit about PCE. We talked with the California delegation about the PCE plume issue, alerting them to that, to the problem, and our concern that the cleanup will take decades of that contamination, and that we don't think that ratepayers should be paying for someone else's contamination. I think all of our delegation were on board with that approach, and following up with that, Senator Feinstein's office indicated that they were going to try and have somebody at our August 8th meeting. Whether that happens or not, I'm not positive. But I did follow up with Rocky Deal and Congressman McClintock's office in Roseville on last Thursday. I went down there and met with him, and he's committed. He's definitely planning to have somebody at the meeting on August 8th, the public hearing. So I think those are great moves, and it'd be fantastic if we can continue to get the senators, both Feinstein and Harris, if we can get their staff involved as well. They've indicated that they'll ask some questions. We'll see where that goes, but we're going to continue to push that PCE issue going forward as well. We had heard back from Congressman Amadei's office that the message that they got, at least the Forest Service is now admitting that they do have additional money in the budget for that program. But now, where they had given us some other excuses previously, what they had told Congressman Amadei is that we weren't getting funded because they had so many applications for the program this year that our project didn't rise to the top of the projects that were funded. I still have some hope that since we have had shown such interest from our delegation, and that includes two appropriators, and Senator Feinstein and Congressman Amadei, that those numbers may get reworked. They have not come out with their final list of projects or agencies they're getting funded. So we still have hope that something's going to happen there. We'll see how it works out. We've also in the past gotten, as the Forest Service has gotten more money that they haven't spent on other projects, they funneled it into this program, and we've been able to receive money late in the year through this program. So I'm not giving up hope yet, but I think we have done everything that we can do to raise the profile of our request and of our program with the Forest Service and the folks who are making these decisions. So our partners around the basin, as Dwayne said, have been fantastic in beating the drum on this topic as well. We'll see what ends up coming out of it.
They used our project as an example.
They had.
I mean, several years ago, that's the reason we got some extra funding, was because they didn't like the example and they're using that as a model.
Yeah, they called Lynn down to their regional office for her to give a presentation about the program 2 years ago.
And now they don't have anything.
Now we don't have any money. Not important. Well, and I would say this is not coming from the region, right? This is not coming from the West Coast Forest Service folks. This is happening back in D.C., which is why it was incredibly timely that we were there the day that Congressman Amadei, or the day before Congressman Amadei was meeting with them for us to reiterate what's going on.
So, yeah, it sounds like from what I hear on this, your trip was mainly informational. You wanted to let them know, particularly on the PCE issues, but also on the fact of what was going on with the money, because that probably wasn't on their radar. So just, I bring this up to assure the ratepayers that basically it was a quick in and out. You guys didn't do anything but eat, sleep, and lobby. And then you were back. And while it's hard to put a quantitative price on the benefits that will come from that, I think it was definitely worth the effort, and I think it will pay off. So
The repetition.
Just my 2 cents worth.
The repetition seems to have a good effect. We're surprised how well they remember it. The resurrected
Politicians, that's their job.
I guess so.
Okay, let's see. Kelly, do you have any board member reports? Well, you're still up there. How long do you water agency? Nothing until the next meeting?
Until the week from yesterday.
Wait from yesterday, okay. All right, very good.
We should be giving a status report on our projects that's on the agenda. And then they let us know if you remember, as we talked about campaign, they have a little bit more legal work and some steps to do before starting into this, launching this new system, being able to distribute money out to the water players. So that will not be on the agenda. We don't expect anything to be on the agenda next week in terms of that process. Their attorneys are working on it. You know, attorneys might take a little while.
Yeah, got to fill those hours.
It's like build hours.
Okay, I think you're next.
Yeah, just a couple quick things. The Tahoe Summit is next Tuesday, August 7th. So we want to send in a response in terms of how many people from the district are going. So how many? We've already sent out a notice that there could be a quorum. So how many board members we expect?
Oh, you will be back when you'll be back.
I won't go.
Oh, you could be back after that.
I want some steel with us.
Yeah, so we're talking.
I won't be able to.
I've got two.
So, 2 board members.
Yes. Yeah. So we'll move around a lot of figures tomorrow.
Say that's what's happening.
Where?
Yeah, I want to find out where it's probably buses someplace on the Nevada side.
I wonder what time we'll get back, because the Clintock's actually, I'm supposed to meet with him at 4 that afternoon.
Oh, we'll get that. Well, it'll be over on noon.
Okay.
It's a couple hours.
That last time we was in Sand Harbor, they actually parked us in that parking lot by Sand Harbor. Yeah, remember that? We went up in the old beat up Suburban or whatever we had at the time.
Excited to remember that last year. Beat up. Still has it.
I think I break it out.
So what time here?
We'll have to send out a notice, so we got to figure out exactly what we're going to do with shovel wise, and we'll send you information on exactly where to be and when. That's all.
Obviously, if we drive all the way to the parking lot in our car,
Yeah, they had it parking pretty good. Maybe this is going to be bigger. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be bigger. It didn't have their big keynote outdoor like they had last time.
Yeah, no outdoor.
This year they have a parking spot on the south shore that's just past state line on the Nevada side, and they're running shuttles from
They are running
Purveyor.
If you want to take their shuttle.
Is it an if you want to take a shuttle, or would you
I
have
can't remember if it's strongly recommended or required.
If they're a little early, just get into their parking lot. That's big. They got a couple of big parking lots.
I don't remember it being an issue with alcohol.
You also have all that construction going on in that area because of the trail.
Yeah.
$1 million mile back trail.
It's gonna be a nice trail. I was up there last week.
So I'll let you guys know, just what our final decision is. We want to drive up there and turn away at the parking lot, so.
Well, we talk to everybody often.
Yeah,
I would get turned away.
Okay, and we just want to let you know, in terms of something that the district staff has been having to invest a lot of time in, we had a Public Record Act request for all of the information, literally, that the district has about asbestos cement in our system. There's a past employee who worked here between 1977 and 1990 who's been diagnosed with asbestosis. And so, because of workers' comp rules, we're not getting sued, but they are looking to us to provide information on the sources of our asbestos and asbestos materials, asbestos pipe, which we have a lot of both on the water and sewer system, in order for them to pursue the pipe manufacturers, the asbestos companies, in claiming that the dangers of the product were known back in the 1920s and 30s, and it was hidden by the industry, the asbestos industry, and so what they're looking to us is to provide the evidence for the fact that this person was around asbestos while working here. They worked here from 1977 to 1990.
And is it still up to 6 law firms, or is there more law firms possible?
There's more law firms possible. They were all getting together and deciding how best this district could respond to this massive request of information. And then they were going to let us know, possibly if we picked somebody who could just answer general questions. We get to pick, the sort of the scapegoat to send down and be opposed, as opposed to going through. And we have a lot of these old files, and they're on the old style of saving data, where you have deliveries, like literally investigating old newspapers, where you kind of be head in a box and you turn the reel and the pictures are going by. We've got hundreds of these types of tape where we've stored plans, we've stored specifications, we've stored work orders and purchases. It's just, So anyway, that's what's going on, and the district will keep you apprised as to what transpires as we move forward.
I would say, even though the rules, say that we're a little bit clearer, I'm assuming that we're keeping an eye on things with Gary, just to make sure that there's no problems.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a request, and we have to sort of search our files and let them know what we have, let them know how long it's going to take. And a couple of the firms have said that we assemble stuff, pull stuff together, they'll come up and look through stuff. Because they'll look for evidence of asbestos. We have, for example, we have master plans on both the water and sewer systems, but I know talk about asbestos cement pipe in our system, because a lot of the assessment districts, and particularly out in the county, were, when they were constructed, both the water and sewer lines were asbestos cement pipe. So we've got they can see in there the extent to which we have asbestos cement pipe in our system. But it's like, how many, there's countless, there's tens of thousands of pages of material. It's like, it's really unreasonable for us to be expected to go through and identify every single page and every single, like when they're looking for, receipts for us purchasing of asbestos materials. Western Nevada Supply is a big pipe supply, so they want us to provide them all, receipts from purchases of Western Nevada Supply of pipe materials. Well, and that's from 1976 to 1990. It's like, how can we possibly do that? So, we've located some, and when you go in and look, there's like 10 pages, like one pipe purchase, where we'll find couplers and pipe elbows. There's 10 pages to that receipt. It's like, so it's, hopefully the group that was having a meeting last Friday to decide what kind of information, how they could obtain that, maybe just by talking to some knowledgeable staff person. Maybe that was a way of satisfying this horrific job of going through our files. Because, we tend to save a lot of things, probably even long past where they're supposed to, but with plans and specifications, when we're saving it because it's information on our system, and then we need that information in order to maintain it. And yet it provides just volumes and volumes of materials that have references to asbestos and pipe.
Documentation burned up, didn't it?
Some of the documentation burned up, and that's kind of when we can't find something, we always blame the fire that happened back in the 1990s in the film building. Well, it must have burned up, behind. And we did lose a lot of files. We still have a lot of material that's in a number of different places. And some of those old, like they asked for the employee file, and Liz had to go through one of those things where you crank and then go through it, and she finally found the fish. What's that? Microfiche, yeah. She finally found that employee's file. That's, I don't know how many, lots of pages. Because they're looking also for training documents, any kind of information we've given our employees about dealing with asbestos cement pipe, how to cut it. Chris started in 1989. He knows that there was instruction given. We always wetted the pipe before we cut it, but there was no written documentation back that far that we can find. So it's a pretty complicated problem and one that's taking a lot of our staff time.
I can see why.
So I think we have, and just one more reminder is on August 22nd at 10 o'clock, we have the DVR, the ribbon cutting ceremony out at Down Valley Ranch. So send out a bunch of invitations, and then we've got some people from the outside coming. Tom Davis from the city council told me that he would be in attendance. Obviously, you guys are all invited. And so there'll be some staff reports now. I know Sharon has one, and you've got a couple other people. Chris has a couple things. Tony, so. No, a couple of
The only one on my list is Gary, so you guys duke it out for who goes first.
Good afternoon.
Yes, by the way, Chris, I requested to see that thing.
I didn't know that until the start. I
want to see what this thing looks like.
Yeah. Well, I'm here to kind of go over what happened Wednesday, July 25th, which was last Wednesday. I'm sure a lot of you have probably seen the blogs from the Highway Patrol website, Channel 4 News, about a hydro nozzle that was dropped on Highway 50 in Pioneer Trail out in Myers last Wednesday morning before the bomb squad got out there. This is what was dropped in the road. Now, I watch a lot of war movies. It looks like an RPG to me or something, but you can kind of see how somebody would think this was an explosive. Obviously, we use them, so we know exactly what it is. And yes, ID swore he disinfected it, so he better not be lying to me. But what happened was the guys were out in Myers working, and they were on their way. They go over to Evelyn Road, which is just off Pioneer Trail, to get water. And they were headed over there. When they made the corner, evidently this wasn't secured as well as it should have been, and it fell off the truck right in the middle of the intersection. So they continued down to get water, which usually takes 10-15 minutes. They turned around and were headed back towards Highway 50 where it came from. When they got to the intersection, it was blocked off by Highway Patrol, sheriff, people were parked taking pictures, I guess. This was laying in the middle of the road. Somebody called it in, assuming it was some kind of explosive device. So the bomb squad was not there yet, as far as I know, and what I was told at the time. One of the members on the hydro got out of the truck, walked over and picked it up and said, "It's not a threat."
We're not, the guy just walks and picks it up.
I don't think I remember what they did. Yeah, probably not very smart as a bunch of police officers, you know.
I just think that's awesome. You should have been employed with one.
But,
you can flex from it, never drop it.
yeah, I just wanted to come up, there's probably a lot of rumors around town. The district was not named in the article or anywhere else that I know of. It just said a sewer cleaning company. It was us. So any kind of rumors, anything you might hear at the grocery store or out around town.
In fact, even the articles in our local paper said it was some kind of cleaning company.
Yeah, sewer cleaning company is all I saw. But it was us, and that's what was laying in the road.
Right. If I need a prop for a bomb, I'm calling it.
Yeah, exactly.
It looks great.
I mean, you know, it's kind of funny, but if you look at it, you could, like an RPG or an old German type grenade, you know. Obviously, I watch a lot of war movies, but I can see where they think.
Put a counter pin in it, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one thing to give you a heads up on. I also have another one. We have a sewer easement off of Sierra House Trail, which is over here by Sierra House School. You go up and around. Sewer easement drops down behind some houses, goes down, and then comes back up to Sierra House Trail. And I had some people, a lady call saying that she was under the impression that we were giving out keys to our easements so that people could use our easements for access to their houses and stuff. I told them no, that we do not. And they informed me that this one easement was being utilized basically daily as a driveway. So I went out and checked on it, and sure enough, from what I've seen, They are. And evidently, Kelly, you're real good friends with them. What it boils down to is they're using the easement, which is basically, all I can see at the time was just a sewer easement, which is ours. We have sewer manholes in the middle of the road and some of them stick up. But they're driving using the easement daily, but they're crossing over several CPC properties. And
This is a dirt road?
yes, sir.
Okay.
CPC is not very happy about people driving across their properties. I'm not really happy about them driving. I understand that she has a big 10-wheeler dump truck come in yearly and drive back over our manholes and dump wood chips in the customer's yard for her. So I don't know what else is going on. I see boat trailers, things like that there. Long story short is CPC does not want them crossing their property, which they have to do in order to get to theirs. And we're keeping people out of every other easement that we have. And with CPC asking us to keep people off also, or working with us to try to prevent that from happening, what we're going to do is, we had a couple gates made up. We're going to send them out a letter. Shelley wrote a very good letter in detail about what the easement is, why there's no access for public on it. And we're going to give them a little while to get the boat trailers out, their cars out of the way, things like that. The customers are not going to be very happy. I went out there and talked to the one lady that I saw because the Subaru was blocking her easement. We couldn't get through anyway, so I had to talk to her. She was not very happy at the time. I did not tell her we were closing. I was just investigating what another customer called and said was going on. She did not like it. So there'll probably be some repercussions from this, but I wanted to give you a heads up, or we wanted to give you a heads up now, that if you start hearing something out in the public, that is why.
And you said 2 or 3 of those out on the trail there. Don't say none, just say one.
If CTC is really not interested in letting things cross their property, why aren't they taking the lead on the gate? Why are we taking the lead on the gate?
You know, I don't know. I know in the past, when it comes to easements, we just worked with CPC. They are involved as far as making corrections to the letter. Anything else you can think of that I don't know, please feel free to speak.
Well, I'm just thinking, it seems to me from your story, they have the primary interest of keeping people out. I mean, we have an interest also.
Yes.
If they have the primary interest, why not let them put the gate in and let them take the heat?
You know, that's a good question. I don't know why.
And also, if they've done it for, this is just from real estate classes. Yeah, well, it's called open and notoriously use of a property.
Or prescriptive easement.
Prescriptive easement is the same thing.
Right.
Over 5 years, open and notoriously gives them a somewhat of a legal right. Especially if it's noticed that they can't use it.
No, they can't prescript against a public agency.
Against a public agency.
Yeah, I figured there was some reason.
Yeah.
So that's on,
They can't do it.
CPC law.
It must be nice to have all these exemptions.
I don't know the answer to your question completely, but what I do know is she did tell me they were driving 10-wheeler dump trucks on our sewer lids. I have a major concern with that. That was one of the only reasons that I was willing, or we were willing to work with CPC. They have an interest, and yes, I do have one too. With 10-wheelers driving over that, who knows what else has been in there driving over it.
The road essentially is our easement. That's part of that, I think, is part of the issue. It goes across multiple lots. It's not that it's CTC's pathway back in there. It's our easement that they're using as a pathway to get to where they want to go. So we've created, in the past, we had created a pathway for them to access on our easement, and so my opinion is that it's our responsibility, even though it's driven by CTC, but it's also, we've created a conduit for them to cross over other property owners' property, and I think we have some obligation to prevent that from happening.
We're the ones who use. So, you said this is Sierra House? So how big of a gate or how much fence adjacent to the gate are we gonna have to put up to keep them from driving around? Reminds me of that old cartoon with the gate in the middle of nowhere.
It's not, it's across, well, what's the main road up there? Marshall Trail, it's across from Sierra House School. It's not over by the school. It actually wraps around. It's a benched-in road on the
But
slope.
it's a single entry spot. There's no way to drive around it.
Well, we own some property right there, don't we? Is it adjacent or?
It's where the old Philip
property.
plant.
The old barn
property, the barn next to Greg James' house, this is just above that. You know where the city goes in and has that little yard where they dump a lot of their dirt and stuff? Well, if you go in the same driveway that we go through, the road splits off. If you go to the left, the city has a bunch of property down there also, and I think it comes up and around, up by where the customers in question live, below that. But it would be right behind the property line of the single-family dwelling that's there now that we go in through by their driveway. As far as rocks and fencing, I'm hoping just the gate is gonna do it, but we do have access to some boulders up there.
If you need to.
Boulders are more natural looking,
Yeah,
so.
that's cool.
How wide is the gate?
Pardon?
How wide is the gate?
You know, just looking at the ones that were down there, if those are the same ones that they're gonna use, they look around 10 to 12 feet wide.
Gotta be able to park in there.
Yes, sir.
So we're doing this, we're building 3 gates right now. 2 are for the Sierra House Trail, the front and back. One side there already is a gate, we're just putting a gate that, where these residents can't create their own locks.
The one gate that's existing now, it appears that somebody has cut the chain and put their own lock on it. None of our keys work on it. So the gates that we're building will have just evidently one lock up inside.
Single protected lock.
Yes.
And then the other location that CTC has asked that we put an install gate again on CTC property is Plateau Circle right across the street from Sierra House. Back behind that on the street on the meadow side, the eastern side of that neighborhood, we're going to put a gate there. And when I was out there a few weeks ago, you know, the meadow grass is up to your knee, nobody's using that road. And again, I think for Sierra House Trail, 99% of the customers, it won't impact them at all, but there is a customer that I think it will impact it. Just so you guys know that what's going on, you know. The easement is on private property, right? So they're back 25 feet of their property is an easement. And so when I met with CTC yesterday, I went with the same question in mind right here. I said, well, you guys should be sending the letters. They're like, well, the easement isn't just on our property, it's on all these other private properties. And it's not our easement, it's your easement, so.
It's something that we'll be accessing, nobody else really does. CPC may at one point declare the lot or something like that, I don't know. But at this point, they haven't asked to have several keys or their lock on the gate or anything.
Okay, great. Thanks for the heads up.
Thank you.
I was curious, Kelly, had you been contacted by the property owner at all? Did you want to say anything about that, or?
You know, actually, you just said, because Vicki Denson is who we spoke with.
Chris is a client.
Exactly. It's Chris and Vicki. They've used it forever. I've used it forever.
Is this on the new house they're building?
Well,
Or is this on their little?
well, because their houses are right next to each other. And the other, they actually sold the new one. Yeah.
Oh, they sold the new one.
They sold the new one. And so she talked to me about it, and this was last week. And I think she thinks it's over with.
When I talked to her, I said I was just investigating what was going on.
Chris has been a client of mine for 30 years, right?
Yeah.
I just know when you have to go to the garage, and they've got the garage that's out on the street.
Exactly.
So they really, you know, that's their only access.
And they built that house next to it. Chris actually just finished it up.
Right, just finished it, yeah, and Asper just closed on it. And so I think what people do, there's like, maybe 4 houses, and then there's one past Chris and Vicki's, and that's the one who, that homeowner has the key to the gate.
Yeah, I don't know who, I don't.
And I don't know who that is, I don't know who that is either, other than that, Vicki said that they're not full-time residents.
Okay, yeah, there's a lot, I don't know.
And she actually asked me to thank you for fixing a little, I don't know if it was a fence or something that was like that was kind of in disrepair, and she said that like dogs, she's seen dogs and stuff get stuck.
Oh, she was talking, yes, she was telling me about the filter plant.
Yeah.
Where our holding pond was, that the fencing was pretty rough looking, and kids were getting in and out of it, so I had the guys come up with pump runs.
Right.
We fixed the gates, we put up new, no trespassing signs.
Yeah. So
She was a real nice lady, don't get me
Now
wrong.
that both Chris's are here today.
Yeah, really nice. It was really awkward, but kind of stuck between a rock and a hard
We're gonna hear a little bit.
Yes, we are.
All right, now I know what to say when Chris calls.
Would you like copies of a letter that goes out to them?
Please.
Yeah, if you email that, that'd be great. Okay, Shannon, did you have it?
I don't have any.
Usually yours was going to,
Yes.
Okay, so it's scary stuff.
No slides, no presentation.
Yeah. Just a 45-minute. Sure.
I gave you a heads up at the last meeting, I was going to give you a little bit more detail what we're doing, looking at the district surface water rights in the Tahoe Basin. Just real briefly, as you remember, the Truckee River Operating Agreement was implemented in December 2015, which then triggered the Truckee-Carson Pyramid Lake Water Rights Settlement Act, which provided the division of water rights between Nevada and California in the basin. So when that happened, the state board then started looking at who had either petitions pending or applications pending for surface water rights in the basin. They went through that process and notified parties in 2017, and then in early 2018, they notified that they wanted to, all the applications and petitions that had been pending had basically been frozen since the 70s. To find out what those persons or entities wanted to do with their applications and petitions. And so with that, the district had requested copies of all the state board files on the district's water rights. There were both petitions for change in place of use, and there were also applications that had been sitting there. We have gone through those files and summarized them and got a handle on what, at least from the state board's perspective, what water rights the district has or is claiming. We also had done some work for the district in the, I'd say, mid to late 90s and looking at some water rights. So we had files in our office from the state board as well. So we went through those to compare and make sure we had everything that we thought it was comprehensive. And what was happening was some of the water rights, there was, for example, there was one water right that was revoked in the early 2000s. And when that happened, the state board purged that file except for some of the main documents. So we were looking to see, trying to backfill some of the information from our files that we had previously had. To summarize, just as an overview, the district has 2 applications for new water rights out on Lake Tahoe. One is for about almost 6,000 acre feet. That is a precautionary file that was done by a water company the district acquired a long time ago, and it was to cover some existing petitions, and I'll talk about those in a minute. So that it's kind of duplicative of what another filing is. And the district also has another application for 19,000 acre feet on Lake Tahoe. That is essentially all of the California water rights allocation, except for about 4,000 acre feet, which is already committed to both state and federal properties. So those have been sitting there. Then the district has some rights on the upper Truckee River. of around, I think they're around 10,000 acre feet. On the Truckee, there was petitions filed by the prior owner of that. Again, this is water rights that we acquired, the district acquired when we picked up those other water companies. And they were looking to move them, there were petitions for change, they're looking to move them to Lake Tahoe because they couldn't be used year-round on the Truckee River because there were flow restrictions so if the river got down to a certain point, they would have to start pumping. And those actually had never been perfected and utilized. They went from an application to a permit, but the facilities to actually divert those were never constructed. Then the district on Cold Creek, just where Chris is talking about the filter plant, the district has two different water rights up there. One is a permitted right for about just under 2,000 acre feet. And then there's what they call a pre-1914 right for approximately 1,300 acre feet. The pre-1914 right is important because it's not subject to state board jurisdiction. It was developed before the state adopted its water code. And so that's a very unique water right. There's some indication that the permitted right may be also pre-1914, and we're taking a look at that. And that's important because if we can establish that it was a pre-1914 right, it takes it out of the state board's jurisdiction. And that actually was the one that was revoked back in 2000, I think 2002. And so, and the way that's treated, if we can show that it was pre-1914, that water right wouldn't be revoked. It just would be what they call an overfiling of a right that it wasn't necessarily needed to be filed with the state board to obtain that water.
Would that come under the 22,000 acre feet we diverted from California?
Yes. I mean, all the diversions, there's 23,000 acre feet allocated to California, approximately 4,000 that is committed to state and federal lands. The remaining 19,000 acre feet is what's available. And my recollection is is approximately, of all and the state board gave us a list of all of the current either applications or petitions that are pending right now. And my recollection is there's about 12,000 acre feet, absent the 19,000 acre feet that the district has applied for. But so it looks like there's only, in reality, around half, a little less than half that's actually being requested at this time, or could be requested.
Can you just briefly go over the difference in the process of the application, petition, permit, and then perfection? What
Sure.
the differences are?
Yeah. You start out with an application for a water right to the state board, and you specify the point of diversion, place of use, the quantity you want, and as long as the water source isn't fully appropriated, then the state board will issue you a permit. That permit will then have conditions and things attached to it. Either there could be flow restrictions as to the time of year, quantity, and so forth. And then what you have to do is, after you get a permit, is build the facilities to actually divert the water. And once you have developed those facilities, started diverting water, put it to beneficial use, then you apply to the state for a license. And then the state board will come out and inspect and do their checklist, and then they'll issue, if you checked all the boxes, they'll issue a licensed water right to the applicant. What was the other question?
No, that was it. I wasn't sure how familiar the board was with those steps. And you mentioned though a lot of these permits are at different steps in that process.
And they were just never gone through with because there was never a need.
Right. So the ones on the Truckee River were permitted But I think what happened is they realized that they couldn't use that to supply water for, let's say, residential domestic purposes for year-round.
Because the seasons were flipped.
The water gets so low at certain points, and there was minimum flow requirements in the river, so that's when they changed, those water companies filed a petition to change the point of diversion from the Truckee River to Lake Tahoe. So that's what all those petitions were, off the Truckee River. There were no applications or petitions filed with respect to the water rights on Cold Creek, and then the applications on Lake Tahoe were never moved because everything was frozen during after the Settlement Act was enacted, and so that they have been sitting there. And the one application that I mentioned for Lake Tahoe diversion is really duplicative of the ones that were the petitions that were filed to move off the Truckee River, because what they were concerned that they might not get that change petition, so there's a backup. They filed a new application as well. So that's kind of a brief sketch what the current status of what we know of the water rights right now. We are, like I said, I think we're now in the process of looking at the pre-1914 rights on Cold Creek and trying to determine if the permitted right could also be a pre-1914. Our next step will be to take that information and distill it into a memorandum discussing the different water rights and what we think is the best approach or options to pursue those water rights. And that once we do that, we'll also be discussing that at a district staff level with these different options to develop a consensus on what we would want to present to the board later on. We'll also keep the state board updated, probably get back to them somewhere in late August, early September, just to let them know the progress we're making. For the state board, they've been fairly easy to work with so far in granting us because they granted us a call. They wanted the decision originally by May 1st, given the extensive documentation and different water rights the district potentially holds. They agreed to give us an extension until November 1st to make a decision and tell them how we'd like to proceed on the petitions and applications. I think at some point after we talk to district staff on the water rights strategy and discuss this with the board, we'll want to touch base with probably our recommendations, the other two PUDs in California, to see how they're proceeding and to coordinate any efforts so we're not tripping over ourselves. And I don't think we will, because there should be more than sufficient water available from the allocation under the Settlement Act to meet everybody's current needs. But we think it's probably advisable to reach out to them, and so we're not doing anything at cross purposes.
Question about how about all the other small water companies, privately owned ones up the West Shore?
There are a number of pending applications and some petitions, but again, if you add all those water rights together, this doesn't even come close to the 19,000 acre feet. So there's not going to be, at least that we see so far, there's not going to be a competition, and someone's not going to get some water rights, or everyone has to take a little bit of a haircut. We don't see that at this point.
Lakeside Mutual and Lukens?
Well, Lakeside already has their water rights in the lake. As far as I know, Lukens does not have any rights to the lake.
More applications.
Or applications. I don't think they had anything pending that I recall.
And I think it's worth noting that what we're talking about here are surface water rights. But that under TROA, it's water rights, so that surface and groundwater use,
Right.
that is, makes up that 23,000.
Total diversions.
Yes, and so as we go forward, I think from our conversations, the water board doesn't really know how they're going to administer those groundwater rights in the future. They haven't done it, they're not sure how it's going to work. They have, the expectation is they'll assign a water master, and we'll have to be working through that process. And so it'll be a combination. Our total water rights will be our groundwater rights plus the surface water rights, but everything we can secure now is something that we don't necessarily have to secure under the groundwater rights in the future.
Yeah, that brings up just a point of jurisdiction. The state board only has jurisdiction over surface water rights. They have no jurisdiction over groundwater extractions. But the Department of Water Resources, the district, like everybody else, reports their water use, total production, to Department of Water Resources. And DWR is keeping track of those diversions with respect to compliance with the Settlement Act. And they issue an annual report. They did one last year, and the second one's not out, I don't think. I think it comes out this fall. But DWR is in charge of making sure that the total diversions of water, both groundwater and surface water within the basin, do not exceed the allocations under the Settlement Act.
And so if you thought that the groundwater presentations that EVO has done in the past have been less than exciting, just wait until we talk more and more about groundwater rights. That's what we're doing here. This will get that much more interesting.
Eventually, what our plan is before November is to have a recommended strategy to bring to the board as far as how we should move on these applications and petitions and potential use and reasons why, etc. And have that discussion with the board. And at that time, we want direction on how to proceed, and then responding to the state board on letting them know what we're going to do. I think if we needed it, the indications seemed like they would be willing to give us more time if we needed it. At this time, I'm not sure that we will. I think we've developed a pretty good work plan and schedule to get us to where we need to be, to let them know by November 1 how we'd like to approach this.
Okay, thanks. I've got all kinds of questions, but I'm going to wait until you guys get further on down the road. I think that's what he's going. Yeah. So, we are at the point where it has to be convened. You can read that there. We have some closed session business to attend to. So let's come out of open session. We'll go into closed session after a brief break. In the open session, nothing to report, meeting adjourned.